everybody. Great to be back. Another episode of Sportsbook Confidential coming to you live from the fingerlicks1.com studios. Sorry we're a little late today. We had another show preempt us for a little while. Elections going on and stuff like that. So good to be here live, and let's get right into it. Why don't we? So today it's all about hockey for me. I got my old school Sabre stuff on. I'm going to teach you all about hockey betting and the different kinds of hockey bets that are available. And there's a lot of them, and we'll explain why that's important. I'm also going to talk about the Orange. I'm going to talk about the Bills with their new quarterback this week. And as my new segment, The Week in Gambling Twitter, I got a couple of quick things to talk about at the end. And if you don't know, my name is John Sullivan, and this program here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. So let's get right into it. And as I always do with my start of every program, I update my bankroll. And as you can see, I had another 2-2 week. The last 2 weeks, I went 2-2, and one of my plays missed by a point. So I was 1 point away each week from going 3-1, but that's the way it goes. So you can see I had Pitt plus 21. That was a win and paid $22. And the Eskimos over missed by a point, so that was minus $24. The Dolphins plus 3.5 with my man Brock Osweiler, Brocktober, did the job, and that was plus $23. And then the Patriots under was, even though it was 60, it went way over. They scored in the 80s in that game. So if you do the math, I lost $3 on the week, so my new bankroll going forward is $7.17. If you divide that by 30, as we always do, my bet size remains at $24 going into the next week. So today's sportsbook lesson is all about betting on hockey. And we've been doing football bets all along. I think I did one hockey bet on the first weekend of NHL. But I'm going to talk more about the different kinds of bets you can make in hockey and why you would be interested in doing that. Hockey betting gives you a wider variety of wagers on an individual game than football or basketball. Yes, basketball, if you include college, has way more games to bet on. Football, if you include college, has way more games to bet on. But you actually have more types of wagers for a hockey game, and we're going to go through some examples shortly. But this allows us to find value in our wagers and still remain selective. So if you're, say there's 3 or 4 or 5 games on an NHL schedule, you can, be very selective and pick the bet, not just the game, but the one wager that gives you the most value, you believe has the most value. So we're remaining informed, and we're remaining selective, and we're betting the number, not the team, and we're managing our bankroll. We're doing all these things as we talked about in previous episodes. So let's look at the basic different types of hockey wagers. And you have the first one, obviously, is the money line. That is who's going to win the game, whether it goes to whether it's a regulation game or it goes to overtime or it goes to a shootout. Whoever wins the game wins that bet. And the second is what's known commonly as the over-under. It's called the total. And it's the total number of goals scored between the two teams. And usually they put it at a 0.5. Sometimes it's on an even number so you can push, but it'll be like 5.5 or 6.5. And you can bet over 6.5 goals scored or under 6.5 goals scored. And then the next one is called the puck line, and that is equivalent to what we would call the point spread in football. And the puck line, a standard puck line, is always 1.5 goals. So you can bet a team on the puck line at plus 1.5, or you can bet a team at minus 1.5. And if you bet them at minus 1.5, they have to win by 2 to win the bet. If you bet them at plus 1.5, as long as they don't lose by 2, you'll win that bet. And then it gets a little more complicated. We have what's called regulation time wagers, and that is what happens in the first 60 minutes of the hockey game. So at the end of 60 minutes, if the game is tied, the bet is over, depending on what you wagered. So if you bet money line on regulation time, At the end of the 60 minutes, if the game is tied, it's a push. You get your money back on the wager. If you bet the point spread, which is commonly plus 0.5 or minus 0.5, if the game is tied, you subtract or add the half a goal, and you either win or lose your bet. So those are the basic kinds of hockey bets. And what I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to pull up some bets, examples of hockey wagers on one game. And you can see I got a whole bunch of wagers here. And this is, you can even go deeper than this, I'll put it that way. You can look for specific totals to bet over, under, and things like that. But here are the common types of wagers on a game that's happening tonight, the Panthers at the Washington Capitals. So you can see the basic money line wager is the Panthers plus 152 at the Capitals minus 168. And that's betting on who's going to win. Of course, if you're not familiar with odds numbers, betting the Panthers at 152 would be wagering $100 to win a profit of 152, and then betting on the Capitals would be wagering $168 to win a profit of $100. So then you can bet the over or the under, and the line on this game is 6.5 goals. Just like I said before, you could bet over 6.5 goals combined, under 6.5 goals combined, and those are the odds for those. Then you have the puck line, and you can bet the puck line either way. The standard puck line is Panthers plus 1.5 or the Capitals minus 1.5, and you can see the odds there. But you can also bet it the other way around. If you think the Panthers can win by 2, you can bet, and you can see the odds plus 367. Or you want to, that's actually wrong. It's supposed to be minus 440. The Capitals plus 1.5, minus 440. If you want to play it safe, that has value. That wager has no value, so I would avoid it myself. Now you can bet you can also on the puck line you can adjust and bet the plus 1 or the minus 1, and I find that particular bet has a lot of value for me, especially if it's a close game. There have been a lot of goals scored this year, and I think the number of one-goal games are going to be down, especially because teams are starting to pull their goalies earlier in the later part of the game. But the Panthers plus a goal, minus 130, or the Capitals minus a goal at plus 110. So if you bet the Capitals minus a goal, if they win by 1, you push your bet. You just get your bet back. But if they win by 2 or more, you win that bet. But you can often find a lot of good value in that wager if the two teams, if the regular money line is evenly matched. And I'll talk more about that later, but I found that bet to work very well for me. And now you have the regulation time wagers. Remember, this is just the first 60 minutes of the game, so the overtime does not count in these wagers. The Panthers plus 135, the Capitals minus 155 regulation time. And then again, you can bet the spread in regulation time, either plus a half a goal or minus half a goal. And you can see here, Panthers plus a half a goal are minus 125. And then the Panthers minus half a goal are plus 200. So if you think they can win in the first 60 minutes, you can, get more value from your wager if you think the underdog has a fighting chance in this game. And I don't have an opinion on this game, but I just wanted to show you, this is not an exhaustive list of bets that can be made on this game. You can bet on team totals, how much each individual team is going to score. You can bet on the first period results or the third period results. Some sports books have player props, how many goals somebody will score, how many shots on goal. Excuse me, but there's a lot of value hidden in all these different types of wagers, and I recommend, if you enjoy watching hockey, I think if you like to sweat a game and you like to have a wager on a game when you watch hockey, it makes it very exciting because the games are very close. Very often it's undecided into the third period. Power plays are even more exciting if you have, or more wrenching if you're on your team is on the penalty kill. But I really enjoy hockey. We are going to talk more about basketball. I do not bet NBA basketball. I hope to have somebody on in the next couple of weeks that does, so I can have them talk a little bit about it. Maybe I'll do a call-in segment. But hockey is something that you can bet almost every day of the year, of the hockey season, I should say, from the beginning of October to the middle of June when the Stanley Cup finishes. And it's a nice complement to the off season between the football stops with the Super Bowl, and then you have hockey till June, college basketball till April, and then before you know it, you're right back into football. And we'll talk more about other sports, when they come around, golf and baseball and whatnot. But hockey has a lot of value, and I think it's really underappreciated. And because it's not bet as much as basketball, I think the lines are, easier to find something worth betting on. So with that, our lesson done for the day, let's actually move on to our games this week. And let's start with the college games for this week. And once again, not a great week for top 25 matchups. So we have the Cuse back in action after their loss to Pitt, and they're home hosting the Tar Heels of North Carolina. This game opened at -12. It got down to -9, and now it's back at -10. I feel like this game is pretty appropriately lined. 67 is a good number. North Carolina is not good defensively. I feel like Syracuse is going to score their share. They're going to get their 35 or 38 points. It's what North Carolina could do against their defense. And it seems like Pitt had Syracuse figured out somewhat last week. Not the best conditions. It's not the dome conditions, but or last time they played, I should say. So I don't feel like there's a bet on this game for me. I feel like Syracuse can cover here, but the total I think is very accurate for this game, and I don't have an opinion either way. So also in the ACC, we have NC State, who I believe are ranked 16th, and then Clemson, who's hanging on at number 3. But they should probably move up if Michigan plays Ohio State one way or the other. I don't know. -17.5 and 56. I would lean over here. I feel like North Carolina is good enough offensively, to put up 20 points here. And Clemson's going to want to run up the score to keep their computer rankings high for the playoff system, because it's no guarantee they're going to make it if they go all the way to the ACC championship. So I like Clemson here. I think they can cover this game. I could see a 38-20 type game. I think Clemson's going to be in my picks this week. You'll see at the end of the show. And then Michigan at Sparty at Michigan State. Rivalry game. We have Michigan State, 7-point underdog. And, Michigan's in a position to, if they run the table, they beat Ohio State, they win this game, obviously, to go right into the playoffs. So I think one team from the Big Ten is going to go. It's just the way I feel. I think the Big 12 is down. Everything on paper says Michigan State wins this game. They cover. Michigan State has a very good defense. Their offense is greatly improved. But it's a rivalry game, and Harbaugh just doesn't seem to coach up in big spots. He just hasn't with Michigan. And that screams stay away from this game. I would probably take the over if I had to choose. But that game really just doesn't excite me at all. And now there haven't been too many Big Ten games I've even wanted to watch this year. So we'll see how that turns out, but that's a pass for me. So let's move on to our pro games for the week. And, of course, I have to add a CFL game to the mix like I always do. And the last 2 weeks, my CFL totals have been off by 1 point. And I think in my personal spreadsheet of my own personal betting, I've lost my last 5 or 6 CFL wagers, even though I've had 5 consecutive winning years, and I'm still up this year, but it's been frustrating, and we'll talk about how you deal with losing streaks in a future episode. But this game is essentially a playoff game. Tonight, late, we have the Edmonton Eskimos at the BC Lions, and we have this opened at 2.5, and the Lions are still 1.5-point favorites. Total 52.5. The team, if the total, if you think it's going to be a high-scoring game, it's definitely go over, because point totals, point scoring, and point differential between teams in your conference significantly matter in the playoff race. All 5 teams in the West Conference of the CFL are alive for 3 playoff spots. And this game is basically an elimination game. This is pretty much 4 and 5 in the division. The Eskimos, the bottom line here is the Eskimos have the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. You could say Masoli is the best quarterback in the league this year, but the best quarterback in the league, if I wanted one guy in the league to win a game for me, Mike Riley is the guy. I think Travis Lulay is going to start tonight for the BC Lions. I feel like the Eskimos, they really struggled in the first half at home last week against Ottawa, and then they made adjustments, and they came out, and I think they're just fully healthy again, and that was a problem for them in the last few weeks. They had a lot of line injuries. They had wide receiver injuries, and I don't even think Riley was 100%, but he wasn't officially on the injury report. But they came out in the second half last week, and they shut out the Ottawa Red Blacks. And I feel like the Eskimos know they have to have this game, and they have the best. They have the best player. They have the best receiver. The pass rushes on the defensive side are about equal. So I think Eskimos win here, and I'm going to take them straight up, I believe. Then on to the NFL games this week. We have a UK game. You can see I have that in parentheses. Tennessee Titans are pretty woeful this year at the versus the Chargers. And the line is -6.5 for the Chargers, and 45 is the total. And I always look at the UK games for one reason, and that's the over-under. This game's in Wembley Stadium in London, and that's known for, even though they've been hosting games there for several years, it's known for not having a great surface for football, and that actually would mean a higher total, in my opinion. There won't be a lot of practice time on the field. There won't be a lot of maintenance if there's other events going on. There will be slips, and that will result in big plays, whether it's a pick six or whether it's defender slipping in a long completion. And I have it in the back of my head, this is kind of narrative street, but that because they market the game internationally by doing it in London, that they like to have high scoring games. And there's no official proof that anything like that exists, but all I can say is sample size bro, but even E.J. Manuel led the Bills to 30 points at Wembley Stadium. So think of that what you will. I mean, even last week the Raiders got crushed, and they put up 3 points, 10 points, I'm not sure what, but that game was close to 40 points in a totally lopsided game. It was 27-3 at halftime, I think. I think the over is a play there. I don't know if it's going to end up on my official list here, but that's something to consider, especially if it goes down at all. The Bills are taking on the Colts, and Josh Allen got a sprained elbow last week. They signed Derek Anderson to come in and be the mentor, the tutelage quarterback, and just in time because Nathan Peterman did Nathan Peterman things last week against Houston. And the line is 7.5. I don't know, how I feel about that one way or the other. If you're a believer in the Bills' defense, you would want to take the plus 7.5. But I do like the total here. It's 43. The Colts score a lot of points, and they also give up a lot of points. And you could see it last week with the Jets. It's a very similar matchup with the Jets and the Bills. They're two teams you never really know what you're going to get out of them from week to week. Obviously, the Jets have a better passing game. But Derek Anderson is a capable NFL quarterback, provided he does not get knocked out of the game. I like the over 43 here. And speaking of the New York Jets, we have the Vikings visiting New York, and the Jets are 3.5-point underdogs, total of 46. And there's two teams here where you don't know what you're going to get. The only thing you know you're going to get out of this game is Adam Thielen getting 100 passing yards. Other than that, you don't really know what you're going to get. So I just won't even start to guess on the spread of the total. I just going to pass. But, good experience for Darnold if you're a Jets fan. You want him to have tough games like that. The Saints at the Ravens. This game is important for playoff posture and potentially two playoff teams this year. And when the Saints are on the road and outdoors in iffy weather, Drew Brees is not elite. And we all know that Joe Flacco is questionably elite. I find him to be somewhat better this year. Last year he was pretty bad. But I kind of like the Ravens minus 2.5 here. You never know what you're going to get. The Ravens have that running back by committee, and they kind of just give it to whoever has the hot hand. And they have an adequate receiving core, but they don't have, too many big play guys. So I lean toward the Ravens here, but I'm taking the under in this game for two reasons. I feel like there's a possibility of a nice windy game. I also feel like that the Saints they score much less on the road, outdoors, and they have their full complement of running backs. They have Ingram and Kamara. So I feel like there may be more rushes than usual for them, and not being in a dome. So 50, it's stuck there since it opened pretty much, and I have the under 50 in this game. And then on Monday night, we have the G-Men, the New York Giants, at Atlanta Falcons. Falcons currently -4, and the total is 54. And I think this opened at Falcons -5.5, and I have no idea why this went to -4. I'm all over the Falcons here. Love it at -4. Love it at anything below that. The total is probably pretty accurate. You could have the Giants getting garbage time. The problem is if they get behind, they have Saquon Barkley eating up clock, and if they're in hurry up throw mode, they're easy to defend against. So I like the Falcons against the spread here, and the total is a pass for me. So that's my roundup of the football this weekend. And now that we've added hockey to the mix, I can bring in my NHL games for this Friday night, tonight. We have, of course, the Panthers at the Capitals, and we examined the numbers on that game to death, but you can see the current line right before the show started. Panthers 138, Capitals -150. Obviously, the Capitals are the better team. The Panthers can score goals. The big question is, can they defend enough? If Reimer starts in goals, I really like the Capitals here because he's a sub-average goaltender. But that's a division game in a parity league, and I don't know. There's not enough value to bet the Panthers straight up, but they're kind of due for a win. I feel like that this is a pass for me. There's not a number that jumps out there. And we have the Minnesota Wild +148 at the Dallas Stars -160. I thought the Dallas Stars would basically have the best offense in the Western Conference. It seems like Chicago is currently holding that title. Edmonton is good. The Sharks could be good if they stay healthy. This game is really also really hard to predict, mostly because the Wild don't always like to play open ice, what I call open ice hockey, up and down, fire wagon hockey, they call it on the TV, where there's lots of scoring chances. But the scoring has increased this year, and the Wild do have skilled players. I don't have enough faith in either of the goaltenders to pick a side there, so again, another pass for me. The late game tonight is the Nashville Predators at the Calgary Flames. And I just bet the Bruins at the Flames the other night, and the Bruins lost. There's two goalies in this game that are when they're hot, they're considered up near the elite in the NHL, and that's Pekka Rinne for Nashville and Mike Smith for the Flames. They're both old for hockey years, or 34, 35-ish. On paper, the Predators have the better team. Both of these teams have deep defenses. I think the Predators are a better team, and Rinne is a better goalie overall. If you get, the thing with Mike Smith, when he's hot, it seems like he stands on his head and stops everything. And when he's not, it's a flurry of soft goals that go in. So I think the Preds are kind of getting into game shape now. They have a few games under their belts. I feel like they're the pick tonight. And instead of taking them on the money line, I'm going to take the Predators -1 at +160. So that will be one of my plays this week. And so before I get to the roundup of all of my picks and we finish up here, I just want to quickly talk about the week in gambling Twitter. And let me just overlay Rufus Peabody in here. And Rufus addressed this on Twitter, and I didn't respond to Mr. Schwartz, but I know you can't read, you might not be able to read what's on the bottom of the screen there, but he says, Jeff Schwartz from the Action Network, a former NFL player, a former NFL lineman, he said, I had an 18 parlay that paid 20-1. I'm going to lose by one game, and people are telling me I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, show me the big parlay you hit, guys. And Rufus Peabody replied to this very similarly to how I would have. And he said, first of all, I don't play 18 parlays. And what did we say last week? Don't play parlays. You'll hit 7 legs of an 8-leg parlay something like 7 times more often than you'll hit 8 legs of an 8-leg parlay. And that's, it's not a bet you win very often, and you'll lose by one very often. And then getting 20-1 odds on an 8-teamer, I guess because he bought points on some or maybe all of the games, is not the appropriate value for that type of wager. You should be getting a payout that's worth the risk of the bet coming in. If the bet has a very low likelihood, if you have very low likelihood of winning all 8 legs of the parlay, so you want the payout to represent the value of how hard that bet is to come in. And the fact that Mr. Schwartz doesn't understand that can only mean one of two things. Number one, he's somebody that's giving gambling advice that isn't smart enough to give gambling advice, or isn't informed enough. I don't want to say he's not smart. He's not informed enough to give appropriate gambling advice. Or number two, he's helping to encourage, whether he's just providing gambling entertainment, he's encouraging people to take risky bets that almost never win. And if their company, the Action Network, is associated with bookies that give them a cut of all their customers' losses, then having losing bettors is good for business for the Action Network. And we talked last week about how they were already preying on young and inexperienced bettors and how that was not cool at all. So, every week there's something from the Action Network that really kind of activates my almonds, as they say on the chans. But I got one more for you here, and this is all about Tony from 5 Dimes. For those of you that have bet offshore in the past or currently do, we're all hoping to have sports betting here locally very soon, but some people have to bet offshore. 5 Dimes is one of the most well-known offshore sports books, and their head honcho, if you will, the chief operating officer, he might be part owner, I don't know, goes by the name of Tony, which is actually a pseudonym. He had disappeared, apparently. It just came out this week that he has disappeared. Apparently he was kidnapped about 3 weeks ago. His car was run off the road, and he was taken at gunpoint. There are lots of crazy rumors going around There are a couple of stories reported out of Costa Rica where he lives and operates his sportsbook that he may have paid a $750,000, his family have paid a $750,000 ransom in cryptocurrency, and he is still missing. They don't know if he's alive or not. There's no way to confirm if any of this is true. But that leaves a lot of people wondering, what will happen with the sports book. Was this guy the owner? Did they pay a ransom with player funds? Did they, I don't know. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth. I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything wrong, except for this poor guy got kidnapped and taken away from his family. We may not have sympathy for the bookmakers, but I certainly don't want harm to come to anybody, or have a violent death for some unnecessary reason. But this story has taken the gambling Twitter kind of by storm, and there really hasn't been much new information, but it's really amazing that it happened 3 weeks ago and nobody in their Twitterverse found out about it till like 2 or 3 days ago, which, makes me wonder. It's one of those things where you step back and you say, how safe is my money if I wager offshore? You really have no recourse. There are very few countries, well, not from the United States. If people are watching this from another country, they have lots of places to wager with, regulated sports books in first world countries. And how safe is your money? If you're going to bet online, my advice is just keep enough to make the wagers you need to make, and keep the rest somewhere safe. So our last, as we wrap this up, I'm going to give you my picks for the week, and here we go. It's in college, we have Clemson minus 17.5. I think they're going to roll minus 108. We have the Eskimos money line tonight. Go Eskimos, plus 106. The Bills and the Colts over 43, minus 105. The Saints and the Ravens under 50, minus 110. The Falcons minus 4 on Monday night, minus 103. And the Predators tonight, minus 103, minus 1 at plus 160. So that would be a nice bet to add to the bankroll. So thanks for watching. I'm going to play the outro music and hope you get some winners. Take care.